Welcome to Her Life Unscripted podcast, inspiring burnt out, stressed out, and stretched thin women to embrace the unscriptedness of life. Hosted by Anna Osborne.
Hello, lovelies, and welcome to Her Life Unscripted episode 47. It is a beautiful spring day today here in the Northern California area, and March is always a time where it's a little bit chilly, but you're starting to get hints of what the spring and summer will look like, and I absolutely love the summer. I try and do a lot of outdoor things with my kids and swim in the pool and travel and visit all of our fun vacation spots. So I always feel like March is this time where we're starting to kind of just feel that energy starting to percolate. So I hope all of you are having a lovely spring morning. I know some of you on the East Coast are laughing when you hear me talk about spring bringing a few warmer temperatures because many of you are still under inches and inches of snow. So hopefully you are staying warm as well. I am simply delighted to be here with all of you today. I have just a really fun month, and I know we've already kicked it off last week with this idea of community and what does it mean to create a community around us and kind of just all those aspects of how we're diving in to look at that theme. And I have a really fun interview to share with all of you today. I had the privilege of interviewing Kasey Schuessler a number of months ago. I believe we interviewed or recorded this episode back in November. It was right post-election, so it must have been mid-November. And she is just one of the most interesting individuals I've had the pleasure of getting to know. She was introduced to me by Lorena Duncan, who you guys were able to meet via the podcast, I believe, in one of the very early episodes, maybe episode 4 or 6 or something like that. And we talked about, Kasey and I were introduced via Lorena, and we were introduced because Lorena just felt like Kasey is this amazing individual that has this great expertise in life and also this great ability to really connect with what the mission of Her Life Unscripted is, which is learning to navigate life when it doesn't follow a script. And she really has truly lived an unscripted life. She shares so much about it during the interview, and I will not give too much away. But one of the things I loved so much about our interview is actually beforehand, when I'm just getting to know somebody, I send them a little document just for them to fill out with their contact information and different things like that. And Kasey was just so great to fill out the little kind of info form so that we could connect and record the podcast. But one thing I asked in the questionnaire is asking them, what do you consider yourself an expert of? So that I really know how to dive into the interview or the conversation. And the thing that Kasey answered was that she believes to have an expertise in life. And I could not agree with her more. It just lit me up with excitement when I read that right before our interview. And it just came out so much during our conversation that she truly is an expert in life. And she has lived and thrived with all the twists and turns from, childhood to where she's at presently with her life. And I'm really, really excited to be able to share her interview, especially within the context of the idea that we're following all month, the theme of community. Not only because obviously she was introduced to me via somebody else I know, and I think that's just a great way to build community, is creating connections through people that we already have a great connection with, but also being able to recognize that through the life experiences that Kasey's had, so much of them have been around this idea of community, and she does just this amazing way of talking about it. So I will not give anything else away, but I will let you guys give a listen to the interview I have with Kasey Schuessler. I also encourage you, we have our live events out and registration will be starting soon. So the dates and everything like that are out on the website. But if you were interested in getting more information, do hop over to the website, herlifeunscripted.com, and fill out the little interest query on the retreats page, and you'll be able to get all the info as we are releasing the registration link for those live events coming this fall. So that is it on my end, but please enjoy this interview with Kasey, and I cannot wait to connect with you after the interview. Enjoy. So I am so excited to welcome Kasey Schuessler to the show today. I had the privilege of being introduced to her via a friend that we have in common, and she connected us. And the second that I got to talk to Kasey over the phone before we did our recording, I just felt like she was a woman that I wanted to have a conversation with. And so I'm just really excited to have her on the podcast today, and so grateful for your generosity of your time and energy for us to sit down and record.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, before we started kind of talking, I was thinking that, or sharing with you that I was thinking about kind of our time together today and kind of just, spending some energy with it. And really, I thought, what a great time for us to be talking about this thing called life and kind of how we manage change, and that when we're in unique circumstances that are new to us, how does that create connection or create disconnection? And so we're just going to spend a little bit of time kind of talking about that, if that sounds good for you.
Yeah, it's interesting because even in my job, I'm a project manager. So what I do is all about change and managing change. And in my life, I've gone through a lot of change, as we all do. And one of the things I've really recognized as I've moved a lot around the country and around the world is when you come into a new place and a new group of people and new circumstances, is you need to find your group. I call it my group of weirdos because I'm always sort of on the fringe. I'm not the group of normals. And so I have to find my group of weirdos that, suit my needs. And I'm part of their group, and I uplift them, and they uplift me. And not everybody's a weirdo, so whatever your group of normal is, you have to find your, let's say your tribe, your whatever, your group of people. And so as you move into that new space, and this is a really great week for that. I mean, we've just gone through an election. There's a lot of upset with change, and it's uncomfortable. We don't like it. But you have to find the happy places with that and find where you're going to move forward and what's going to make you better through the change.
Yeah. And I think it's, as you talk about kind of finding your people or finding, your weirdos, I love how that sounds. I think it's also too that as a woman is an evolution, right? I don't know for you, but I know for me that early on, as I was kind of finding my people, there was a draw or a pressure that I think was, who knows if it was external or internal, maybe a little bit of both, of that, well, these should be my people because of this, or these should be my people because of that, rather than really trusting within myself or knowing myself well enough to really gravitate towards the people that feed me, and having the confidence to very kindly and respectfully step out of relationships that weren't my people and not feel guilt for that decision to really, move in that space of creating connection that was much more authentic than kind of that superficial, we should just all connect because, we're in the same class. Or, those things that are small as you're young, but they also continue as you move out of school and kind of into your adult friend groups.
Well, that's the thing as women, we think like, well, we're all women, right? We go through some of the same things. And so we are all part of the same tribe because there's certain things that we understand about each other that men don't go through, but there are inherently things that are different about us. Whether it's race or socioeconomics, and those things don't necessarily define us either, because, a lot of my friends come from a whole bunch of different backgrounds, including myself, but you have to kind of find what really works. And, working women, part-time working women, non-working women, and I don't like to say, stay-at-home moms, they're working women too. So there's always been this clash, at least in America, of, this culture thing. And so finding the right group, the right mix of people that support wherever you are in your experience. And what if you're not a mom, right?
Right.
And what if you don't want to be a mom? And that's okay too. And so again, it's finding your group of weirdos that support all of that and all of who you are and where you are. And it does change and evolve from, like you said, from when you're in college. And I didn't have a normal experience, so I don't know what that looks like, because I got married when I was 16 and I was living overseas when I was 18. So I don't really have a frame of reference, but I know a lot of people who do. So I get it from a observer's view. But, coming to the 20s and 30s and then finally raising kids, and my kids are now in their teens. I have friends that were friends through convenience, maybe more acquaintances, and then I've made friends that are still friends because we connect. Again, my group of weirdos, and even my group of weirdos that are from other states because I've moved, but we really connect, and so we stay in touch over time and space.
Well, that actually is interesting. So you have moved throughout life. Like you said, you've moved and lived all over the world. Is there anything that has felt universal about people or about relationships as you've moved throughout so many different, cultures and traditions and living all over the world? Is there anything that you found to be universal?
Yeah, people are a lot less secure than you think they are. And, even people you think are really, like, they've got their stuff together, there's stuff that they're really insecure or scared about. You'll find it. If you get to know them, if you dig deep enough, or if they'll let you in, you'll find that about them, and you can connect to those people as well. And, humans are humans, right?
Yeah.
So even the people that I don't really care for, that's what makes me go, okay, I don't really like that person. They're kind of an ass, but they're still human. Yeah. So something makes them tick and something makes them kind of an ass. So what is it that makes them that way? I'm not excusing their behavior, but I have to try and understand who they are. It doesn't mean I want to hang with them, but, there's something about them that makes them just as human as I am. So what is that thing?
Yeah.
And that's what's universal is, okay, you have the same kinds. There may be different insecurities that I have, but you have the same kinds of junk that I carry around, but I deal with my stuff differently than you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's such an important thing, especially like you said, we're very post-election, less than 24 hours, or I guess 36 hours. And it is thinking there feels like there's so many differences and so much disconnection kind of as everybody's adjusting to this change, but knowing that we all have our wounds and we all have our insecurities, that there's a heck of a lot more we can connect around those pieces versus the differences that are being highlighted right now.
Right. And thankfully we live in a democracy. So again, no matter what side of politics somebody lands on, we still live in a great country, and people can still unite around love and peace and kindness and find something great about what they want to move forward with. And, there's still peace.
Yeah. And we're all still human, like you said. It's funny to me. I've had to kind of limit my social media content because I was getting so consumed by it the last, day or so. But even just throughout this election season, there's so many people that have posted these random acts of kindness, and they've posted them and said, look, there's still goodness in the world. Like, this happened to me today at the coffee shop, or this happened, I overheard this conversation in the supermarket. And it's interesting to me, as you say it that way, kind of what you just shared, that we get surprised by the kindness, the peace, the connection, the respect. Like, when we see it, we're so bombarded with all this media of everybody being so angry and hateful that we get surprised when we see the good stuff, rather than realizing that America is still great because we're all still here, right? Like, that right. We are what make this country great, because we are, and I mean everybody, are about those core things. And yeah, there's a lot of wounding that happens to where we don't make those choices to show up respectfully, but that we as a whole are still great. So therefore the country is still great. And we don't have to be surprised when we see acts of kindness. If we just kind of realize that it's always there, it's just the bad stuff is scarier and the volume turned up louder. And so we get so used to seeing that, we believe that's all there is.
Well, and it's kind of like, it's what you teach your kids, right, when they're little, stranger danger. Mm-hmm. And I used to teach my kids, most strangers, right, the majority of them, I don't know statistically what the percentage is, but let's just pick a percentage just for the fun of it.
Yes.
95% probably, that's probably accurate, maybe even higher. 95% of the people that you meet, and it's probably higher than that. Maybe it's 98, maybe it's 99%, mm-hmm. are good people.
Yeah.
Like, most of the people you meet are good people, are kind people even. They're not even an ass. Mm-hmm. They're nice, good people. You just don't know that, the weird, shady people when you're teaching your little kids. Like, you don't know those people are weird and are like the bad kind of weird, the scary weird.
Right.
So you have to teach them how to, negotiate and maneuver around all that kind of stuff. But I don't want people growing up, I don't want my kids growing up, and I don't approach the world of everybody's bad. I approach the world of most people are actually pretty good. Mm-hmm. And so when I see somebody who's behaving badly, I'm not even going to presume that they're a bad person. I'm going to presume that I have bad days too. And sometimes I may act like an ass, I don't know. Hannah, maybe you've had a day where I don't usually act like that, but maybe I behaved badly.
Oh,
and I
for
go,
sure.
oh, yeah, I wasn't super proud of that moment.
Right. That's not how I want to show up.
Yeah, if I could have pressed the erase key, trust me, I would press the erase key and I would take that back. And thankfully that wasn't caught on camera, I don't think, but maybe nowadays it was.
Right.
So who knows? Most of the time I try to give people the benefit of the doubt. Unless I'm having a bad day, then maybe I'm not giving them the benefit of the doubt. Okay. I don't want to live my life thinking that everybody else is an idiot.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. Like there's so much wasted connections and wasted relationships that slip through our fingers when we look at the world as everybody's bad. We become so small and so isolated when that happens to us.
Right. It's way more interesting to think that somebody else has something more interesting to offer and that maybe I have something to offer to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a moment, in an exchange, even if it's getting a cup of coffee.
Yeah, even if it's a smile.
Yeah. So, who knows? I know that's really surface level stuff, but it kind of goes deeper when you practice it regularly. And my therapist, because I'm back in therapy again, it's a regular part of my life. She has me doing this thing that I think is really good. When she first mentioned it, I kind of scoffed and rolled my eyes, and she told me to stop scoffing and rolling my eyes. But, so I stopped, and then I thought about it, and then I've been doing it, which is you start the day looking forward and either writing or mentally thinking for just 2 minutes about positive things that you could do that day or think about doing that day or looking forward to in the day. And then you end the day, either you can write it down or think about it. And then you write about the things that you saw or did in the day that were positive, nothing negative in those 2 minutes. And that's really changed my life. And it sounds really kind of, I don't know, corny.
Yeah. And that it's a simple thing.
But it helps.
It's something that is so simple, and yet the effect it has is just exponential.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a powerful exercise. So, Kasey, you have, like you said, you've moved a lot, and you grew up in a large family, correct?
I did. I'm the youngest of 6 kids, and then my parents also took in extra people. Mm-hmm. It's just what they do.
Yeah.
Because they're large-hearted people. Mm-hmm. My dad's a school teacher, and I live here in California. I grew up in California. Lived in San Luis Obispo, which is Central Coast, which when I was growing up was not expensive. It's really expensive now. Yes. I can't afford to move back there. Nor do I really want to, because everybody lives down there that I know, so I choose to live elsewhere. But yeah, so I grew up in a large family, and then my parents, when I was 7, decided to move us to Alaska and live. They hate it when I call it this, but it's by every definition. It was a commune. Mm-hmm. It was communal living for 3 years, which was a good exercise in life.
How so? Share more about that. What did it teach you, kind of living in that kind of communal living space?
Living in the communal living space, the ideologies of a commune are, when you think about it, when you haven't done it, the ideology is fantastic. But then when you live it out and you get human experience and personalities, it's a little bit less than desirable. But the good stuff is that you learn to appreciate other people's space, and you have a bigger sense of community. Everything you do is for the community. You grow food for the community. Everything you do is for the greater good. So for those 3 years, I did get a really healthy respect of everything, from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, and even my sleeping arrangements were all over the place. Mm-hmm. It was all about the greater good. So definitely shaped me. Some of that is also a therapy experiment as well, but, on the good side, it did help me. It did help me, like, when I live in a neighborhood, I don't think of my property as just my property. I think of how does it affect my neighborhood? How does it affect my neighbors and, the community here?
Yeah, that's a huge, huge learning, right? To be able to just have that mindset and have it be automatic rather than having to, be reminded to think of it. If it's that automatic, is how do my decisions or my actions impact the greater good of the community around me when I make decisions that impact everybody in a positive way, that really amazing things happen. And then I would imagine, 3 years in that experience, you also would see the opposite, where negative choices really did impact the community in a negative way.
Oh, yeah, when people decide they're going to do something for themselves. I mean, but you see that in a neighborhood, right?
For sure.
So let me decide it's me, it's mine, it's my property. I'm going to, and I've seen this too, I'm going to reroute this part of the creek because it's on my property. I don't care what it does to everybody else. I'm going to do this thing. Okay.
Yeah.
So when the floodwaters come through, it's going to affect everybody else. Mm-hmm. But, they don't care. And I just have such a different perspective on that. I'm not saying it's better. I have a different perspective on that.
Yeah, absolutely. How did that impact your own parenting, kind of having that be a mindset that you were raised with or experienced at a very young age?
Well, we've raised the kids and say, like, just because when we own something, or even when we've temporarily rented property, even when you're renting something, just because you're renting it and you don't own it, it's somebody's property, right? You're still part of a community, and you respect that it's land and it's community, and you take very good care of it, and you think about the impact of, whether it's sound or sight or, whatever. You just, I don't care if there are CC&Rs in the neighborhood. You just be respectful of what it looks like, what it sounds like, what it smells like, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then however you change the landscape, make sure that the water moves the way it's supposed to do, right? That all the stuff goes the way it's supposed to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I grew up in a family that camped all the time. That was kind of all we could afford to do for vacations. And so, right. And so I don't think I flew on an airplane until I was in my early 20s. And so we just camped all the time. And, as I got a little bit older and kind of into the teen years, there would be other campsites that would have music playing. And I never understood, I understood, but I never really got. I didn't know with the capital K, I just kind of knew, but I didn't really get why I couldn't bring my stereo to our camping trip and why I couldn't play my, cassette tapes. And I didn't get it. And my dad's like, no, this is a shared space. Like, this is everybody's right here for their own experience. And if we impact it, if we pollute it with, whether or not we would, leave the campsite the way that we found it or better, or if we're playing our music or things like that we're impacting other people's experience. And I got what he was saying, even though I didn't like the answer, but it is this way that has impacted the way that I see the world, that even when I go with friends places and, the music is up loud, I feel this kind of like looking around like, doesn't everybody realize that this could be impacting, the people sitting next to us at Lake Tahoe Beach? But it is, you say it that way. And I think like, yeah, that's so powerful to just have this mindset that we're looking to make sure we're making decisions that are really based on the greater good.
Right. I mean, I have a car now. I can put the top down on, and if I'm playing my music, I actually I'll turn the volume down. And I love loud music, but I don't need to share it with the whole neighborhood or the whole freeway, especially if I'm sitting in traffic, because I don't presume that everybody wants to listen to what I'm listening to.
Yeah, yeah. What a profound thing, though, to have, kind of a ripple effect kind of going out of raising your kids with that mindset, being able to just be mindful of those decisions, that the decisions they make impact everybody, and to have them have that as a core is amazing.
Well, there's a joke now though. If a car goes by and it's got loud music playing, because I started when they were really little, it was something I never even really, it was not mindful on my part. A car went by and the kids were really little and the loud music was going, and I didn't dislike the music, but it was really loud. And I thanked the person, not because I really enjoyed the music, but, oh, hey, thanks for sharing your music with everybody. And so now my kids say that all the time, like, right. Oh, hey, thanks,
Oh, how funny. That's funny.
Do you have daddy issues? Like they'll just, like sometimes like it's a little bit snarky, and I get that, but, I don't know if I doubt that the person with the music going can even hear them, but
right.
It humors me.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, yeah, no, my favorite is too when people are on motorcycles and they have their music up so loud, because I've never ridden on a motorcycle, but my thought is that if you're riding on a motorcycle down the freeway, you probably can't hear your sound system, but it's so interesting when you see people driving down the freeway and the music on the motorcycle is so insanely loud. And I'm like, how can they even hear it? Like it defies logic for me. I don't get it.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you got married very young. And you waited a few years to have children, correct?
13 years.
13 years. What did you learn as getting married young? What were the things that really stood out to you, or the lessons that you kind of got from that experience?
Well, getting married young, it was a little bit of there was an option. It's not like I had to get married. I wasn't pregnant. It wasn't, it was not a shotgun wedding or anything like that. I was raised in a really religious family, but it wasn't even for that reason. I did and I do love my husband, and our unusual life circumstances, his family had already moved on and left him, and he was, by the time we got married, he was 19. By the time I met him, he was 18, so we're 15 and 18 when we met. Mm-hmm. So his parents had already moved on and left him with a business to run, a failing business to run, by the way, so that's not really ideal. Mm-hmm. And he didn't know that it was, he was under the impression that it was his job to make it not fail. Oh. And so he was working hard to make it not fail when I met him. And I was left with trying to make sense of my own life. I had dropped out of school when I was 14. So as soon as I started high school, I dropped out of high school, and then did some homeschool for a year, and that's kind of a whole nother therapy session. So was doing all that stuff, and then I was cleaning houses and doing a lot of other odd jobs in landscaping, and then we met, and so we're kind of trying to make sense of our lives, and we were already adults. That sounds insane. When I look at my own kids who are 17 and 15, I think, oh my God.
Yeah, but the life experience.
There's no freaking way. But when I look at our life circumstances and go, okay, in my household growing up, there were other people who kind of needed the bed space. There's no polite way to put this. There's other people who had other needs more than I did. Mm-hmm. I was always really independent. And if my parents listen to this podcast, they'll be really mad at me. So I'm not going to be sending them the link. But they kind of needed me to move on. And I didn't realize that at the time. It's one of those things you look back on and you realize you're being nudged, and you didn't recognize it until later on in life. And so I was being nudged, and he was already, kicked out of the nest. He was living in an apartment. So, we fall in love, and we decide the best thing we can do, right, is to just get married and start a life together. Yeah. So we get married and live in a little tiny trailer out near the beach in Morro Bay for a year, and then he joined the military because we had nothing. Yeah. I was poor growing up, and so that was not really a problem for me.
Right.
That seemed like that was richer than what I knew.
You had beachfront property.
Right, we were a mile from the beach. I could walk every morning on the beach. So that's what we did. And so then we went, he was in the military, but we were in the military because as a dependent wife, you're in the military. So we did military for 4 years, Air Force, and that took us overseas after tech school, which was in Colorado. And that was really eye-opening, and that was the first Gulf War. We went through that as well. And, life just keeps taking all these little turns, right? So my college experience, if you will, was really more like it was Air Force.
Yeah.
But most people would have experienced regular college. Mine was being not in college, but being in the Air Force with, enlisted people and that whole experience. So, and it was fun, and we did a lot of stuff, and, I worked as an enlisted wife. So I learned a lot there, and I learned that America, though we are great, and I'm very patriotic, we're not the only country in the world. And I learned that young, and overseas, we don't matter as much to people in Europe. That's the reality.
Oh, it's such a good, but do we think it? And like you said, the reality is that's not the truth. And being able to learn that at a very young age is powerful.
I was 18 and we moved to England, and America was only in the news to be made fun of.
Wow.
Imagine, I'm not being political, but no matter who was elected, we would be made fun of right now. So, America was just to be made fun of. So it was always interesting.
I would imagine. Yeah. And so when did you guys eventually come back to the States? You said your husband was in the military for 4 years.
He was. Most of the first year was tech school. And then 3 more years was in Great Britain. And so then I was 21 by the time we came back to America. And so then when we came back was 91, and we came back to a recession in California.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And so we lived in my parents' house for 6 months and paid them rent. And my husband was a DJ.
Okay.
And then before he got a job, and I worked odd jobs, cleaning houses and whatever else I could do. Mm-hmm. And then he got a job and I got a job, and we moved forward, and then I started going to school.
Wow.
Then my schooling took like 21 years. So my schooling, by the time I finally finished at 43, my schooling was old enough to drink by the time I was done with my degree.
So hopefully you did have a drink while you celebrated when you...
Oh, I did. Yeah, of course I did. But I was able to drink at 18 because I was overseas.
Oh, that's true, too.
Legally. So, but I mentioned that my college career was old enough to drink by the time I was graduating, and only the parents of the kids that I was giving my speech to understood what I was talking about.
Right, exactly. Oh, that's funny.
The kids are all looking at me like, I don't really understand what you're talking about.
Right, exactly.
You're still a weirdo old student in our class.
But good for you. That's an amazing accomplishment no matter when we do it, right? And to continue on with it, through so many changes is such an accomplishment.
Life is for the living.
Yes.
You're not dead. You keep moving off forward.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So thinking about that and you have, as you described, kind of, just this snippet of kind of the journey you've been on. There's been so many times that you've had to pivot, right?
Right.
So thinking of hearing your story and the ways that you have pivoted and shifted through kind of just all the different curveballs and the obstacles and things like that, what would be your greatest piece of wisdom to offer, other women that are listening right now that are really in the trenches of navigating change that they don't understand or change that they can't yet see kind of the other side with? Any sort of wisdom or words you would offer to them?
That's always a little bit scary, but, keep your eye on the prize. Like, figure out what you want the end game to be. And then, no matter how hard it is, even if calculus is in the equation, because that was in the equation for me, even if calculus is in the equation, you can do it. So, figure out what you want, and then figure out the steps to get there. Don't look at all of the steps to get there. Look at the end prize, and then look at one step at a time. Because I know for me, for anything that I do, including right now, I'm working on a front yard project and I'm putting in a retaining wall, and I hurt. Every part of me hurts.
Yes.
Every part of me hurts. From my ears to my toes. And I'm dirty, so it's a good thing that this is a voice thing,
right?
Not
absolutely,
a visual thing, because you'd be horrified if you saw what it looked like.
No YouTube channel, just audio.
Yeah, it's perfect, but you have to go a step at a time. Otherwise, you get really discouraged and you want to give up. And sometimes, even with one step at a time, you want to get discouraged. But when you want to get discouraged, look at the end goal and go, okay, I can get there. And then when you have made several steps, sometimes you have to look back down the hill and go, wow, look how far I've come. Not how much more I have to go, right? Wow, look at what I've done already. That's pretty cool. Like, I've already done all of this, and that's pretty amazing. I didn't think I could do all that.
Yeah.
And can I do whatever, right? 50 more steps, or I can probably do that. Yeah, I can do that, like in little chunks. I can do that. And then I can take a little rest, and then I can look back down again. If I need to look backwards, it's okay. Look down and see what you've done, as long as you remember that the goal is the top of the hill. But you don't have to think about all of the steps between here and the top of the hill.
Yeah.
As long as the top of the hill is not the thing that makes you go, oh my God,
right.
Getting up there is going to make me lose my breath. That's the goal. That's where we're going to go. But remember, you've already come this far.
Yeah. Yeah. I love all pieces of that. And the piece that rang to my ears as you said it is also the times that it's okay to rest, and I think that as women, and especially, where we're at right now with the election being over, that there's such an intensity of feelings all over the place, and that sometimes on our big, enormous journey that we do need to break down into those steps, like you said. I love that you shared that sometimes we also need to rest, and that is part of, that is a step within the journey.
It's part of it. I mean, sometimes we're sad. Sometimes we're mad. Sometimes we just need to scream. Sometimes you need to get in your car and drive. I don't know whatever your thing is.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to just go do that thing and not be guilty about it. It's your thing. As long as you don't make your thing all the time, right?
Yeah.
You know, I can't drive all the time because trust me, if I could, I would drive all the time. I wouldn't drive all the time. I would either drive and or backpack all the time.
Yeah.
But apparently that doesn't make any money. So
yeah, that's what they say.
And it doesn't raise kids, but
yes.
Whatever. So I can't drive and backpack all the time, but I can do those things some of the time.
Yeah.
So some of the time that I do those things, I make them really meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
And so even during my commute time, sometimes I get off of the freeway and go, I know it's going to take me longer if I drive inland and drive the windy roads, but oh my God, it's so much fun to drive the windy roads and there's less traffic. So it might take me a little bit longer, or given traffic, it might take me less time. Who knows? It's going to take me more gasoline. I don't really care. Yes. I'm going to enjoy the ride more, and I'm going to get home. I'm going to be happier, and it doesn't matter. I'm living life, and I got to do this thing. I got to do this for me. And as women, I think, I can't say this for all women, but I think majority of women, it's kind of a woman thing that we tend to, and even more if you're a mom, but even if you're not a mom, right? I got to give, right? I got to give. I got to support this. I got to support the kids, support the partner, support the whatever. But sometimes you got to, before you do all that, you got to support you.
Yeah.
You can't support anybody else if you're not supporting you.
And how often we need that reminder or give ourselves permission to do that,
It's hard to, because we don't live in a society where that's okay. I mean, overall. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think we're getting better as a society. Like, we're seeing a little bit more where it's okay. So I think that we need to make that more of the dialogue where it's okay. Mm-hmm. And you can't do it all, again, you can't do it 24/7. Nobody can do it 24/7, but every day you should find a little bit of time, carve out a little bit of time wherever it is, make a little bit of you time to recharge.
Oh, it's such a great reminder. It's such a powerful one. This kind of juncture that we're at of being able to give ourselves permission to rest and permission to take care of ourselves, and knowing that is a universal need, and that even those people that look like they're doing it, they're on 24/7. They're not. That's just what we see when we're doing that comparison game, but it's so not true. Yeah. Well, Kasey, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to let me get to know you a little bit and hear your story. And I'm just walking away with this time that we had with so much, but this idea of being able to, connect through our insecurities and our wounds, and also to find, time for rest, that's an integral part of our journey, are just huge things that I just feel like are a blessing to my listeners to be able to hear that from you and just kind of get to know you too.
Well, thanks for having me, Anna. I feel very honored that you even wanted to talk to me, especially since most of your people are actual professionals in your field.
Hey, we are all professionals in life, right? That is my
true.
Theory.
Hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I just so much appreciate it.
Well, cool. Well, thanks again, and look forward to listening to more of your podcast.
Awesome.
Tremendously fun interview, and I always love going back and listening to the episodes as I'm editing and putting together the show notes, and just getting to revisit a really cool conversation. So I hope all of you enjoyed it as much as I did. Now, just a little side note, my sweet puppy is sleeping next to me on the ground, and she is snoring so loudly. So if any of you are hearing snoring in the background, I'm sorry, I'll try and edit it out, but she is just having apparently a little afternoon nap. So we're just going to roll with it. But coming back to the interview with Kasey, there are so many great things that she talked about, but this idea of making decisions based on the greater good,
just absolutely floored me. And it's something that I wrote down and I've kind of reflected on and done some journaling around of, as a individual, how do I work towards these idea of collective decisions, right? Decisions that are really based on the greater good. And sometimes when I make those decisions, it's really based on me, right? If I'm in a better space, I'll be so much better for those around me. And sometimes just being mindful and conscientious of other people's feelings and the impact that I have in the world on them, and how can I make really important decisions when I'm recognizing that the collective decision or the decision based on the greater good is actually a really powerful way to operate. So I love that Kasey shared about that. And isn't her story just amazing? I mean, she is just such an amazing individual and so kind and generous. And I'm just super excited that you guys got to meet her and get to know her a little bit, because I know it was a really great introduction and I'm excited to stay in touch with her. And another thing I think that really, for me, I pulled out of the interview was this idea of being able to obviously find your group, right? The people that really suit your needs, and recognize that you're a part of their group and you lift them up and they lift you up. And that is a beautiful thing. I know that through kind of my evolution, as I move through my adolescent and young adult and now my mid-adult years, is that a thing? I don't know. We'll make it a thing. But in my mid-adult years is recognizing that I'm not going to connect with every group, right? And that I don't need to bend myself to fit with every group, but instead really embrace the groups that I do connect with and that suit my needs and that help uplift me and really let me uplift them. And that has been a beautiful gift to be able to move into that space of kind of creating that sense of community within the connections I have in my life. And I really hope that, you know, through listening to this interview with Kasey, that if you don't have that community of people around you, you know, your group of normal or your group of weirdos, as she says, start building that, right? It's never too late to do that. I work with clients every single age, right? And it is absolutely so important to have that connection with our group of normal, our people. And it isn't something that just because we're a certain age, we stop needing. We need it in our entire lives. We need to know that we're a part of a group and that we're uplifted by it and that they are lifted by us. So I really encourage you guys to utilize the words Kasey shares and really incorporate that in, because I think it's important to realize that we need that group and really to embrace it and give ourselves permission to let it evolve into really suiting our needs. That was just a beautiful way she described it. So I'm excited you got to meet Kasey. I did include her email address if you guys are interested in the show notes. And obviously you're always welcome to reach out to me, Anna@herlifeunscripted.com, or via the SpeakPipe app. I'm happy to send feedback and questions to Kasey as well. So I look forward to continuing to connect with all of you. And I'm excited for hopefully meeting a number of you guys for our live event in the fall. So please do head over to the website at herlifeunscripted.com so you can get more information about that and also get on the interest list as we release the registration link here in the next few weeks, probably, if everything goes according to plan. So thank you so much for taking the time to slow down with me and letting me into your worlds and into your hearts. It is always a pleasure and always just so great to slow down and connect with all of you. So have an absolutely beautiful day. Talk to y'all soon. Bye.